Welcome to Horrifically Well Read, Bled, and Said. It's season 2, Adam, and we're on episode 2.
Oh, yeah, already? That's fast.
Yeah, it's January and it's cold, and I have the heater blaring in our room.
We do.
And I'm staring at my toes, and I realize that my gel polish is only on my 2 big toes,
Mm.
and the other 8 are like clear, natural, all natural. But these 2 painted ones look like short middle fingers, and we're about to interview Andrew Adams
Oh, yeah.
with middle finger rigor mortis. So do you think I could show his book and do 2 toe middle fingers?
The double big toes?
Yeah. It's so weird
Does
though.
that mean the same thing? A
I don't
double
know.
big toe as a double middle
I don't
finger?
know. I don't know. We have to ask him. We forgot to ask that part. But in a lot of languages, dedos, for instance, is just fingers
Hmm.
and toes. It's the same thing. So he said he loves getting the middle fingers given to him and shown in support, but I wonder how I'd feel about my toes.
Yeah,
Creep him out.
foot fingers.
Foot fingers.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So if you enjoy this episode where we talk about middle finger rigor mortis, which is a fascinating serial killer story, make sure you hop on his Instagram and send him a shot of you give him the double middle fingers. He'll
Pick your
enjoy it.
toes or your fingers.
Yeah,
He
true.
will surprise him.
Uh-huh.
Maybe if
Do all
you-
four.
I was going to say, if you can flexibly fit into it, do all 4.
All right.
But also, this is one of the coolest book covers. The yellow is so
Mhm.
sharp. So it's going to look great on your shelf. Not only is it good writing and an entertaining book, it's good looking.
Yep. And this
So-
is a very thoughtful conversation. And Andrew's really well versed in the subject that he talks about in this book. So I think that you guys are going to get a lot out of this conversation.
Yep. Enjoy.
Welcome back to Horrifically Well Read, Bled, and Said. We are very excited today to talk to Andrew Adams, author of Middle Finger Rigor Mortis, which is coming out January 13th. When this releases, it will probably already be out. And we are just very excited to talk to you today, Andrew. Welcome.
Likewise, I'm super excited to be here with you guys.
Yeah, so you're kind of cornering this sort of dark philosophical serial killer section of horror. And, this is kind of like a theme for you now. What is it about the serial killer that's just so interesting to you?
Yeah, I guess that is kind of what I've focused on a lot of unwittingly. It just sort of seemed to happen that way. I think serial killers are fascinating just because they're still intrinsically human. Maybe not, human like the rest of us, but it's a little bit more terrifying to me than paranormal or zombies or vampires or something like that, which depending on, whether you think those are real or not, particularly the paranormal. Serial killers are definitely real.
Absolutely. So if you want to just give us a quick, I know it's the worst thing ever, but your elevator pitch or your quick synopsis so that anyone that isn't familiar kind of knows what we're going to be talking about here when it comes to what Middle Finger Rigor Mortis is about.
Perfect. Yeah, it's about a 8-time final girl who survived the same serial killer 8 different times, and she and a psychiatrist that befriends her end up teaming up and going after serial killers, both of them, to heal their respective traumas.
Yeah, and you did not hear that wrong. 8 times the same serial killer. And that's kind of like the emotional headspace that we meet Marilyn. She's considered a hero. She's considered this role model, even though she does not consider herself to be. And just the intense amount of trauma that one time going through this would create. When you were kind of germinating this idea, how did you come up with the number of massacres that she's dealt with and just that intense level of trauma? Why did you want to start your character out at that point in this book?
I wanted it to be a little bit over the top just to prove the point. Of course, surviving one time would still be severely traumatic. I wanted them to have a relationship, the butcher and Marilyn, so that it just seems justifiable, everything that happens. And a lot of the book is written metaphorically, with metaphor in mind.
Yeah.
And so suspension of disbelief was going to just have to be part of that equation. So I figured if we're going to do it, let's go ahead and make it several times.
Yeah, I think that when you talk about metaphor and that kind of thing, I think that it's almost like she's gone through almost what readers and people, whether it's, the violence that we see every day in real life, whether it's someone that's watched a lot of horror movies, that numbing effect of just the sheer amount of violence that they've been through is definitely sort of like reflected in what Marilyn has gone through, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I drew from a number of different places when writing this. One of them being about 10 years ago, I was at a school site where I used to work when a school shooting happened.
Ooh,
And so I kind of drew from that experience and just kind of knowing that people around me were dying. And that was
oh,
something I wanted to impart upon Marilyn.
I'm so sorry. That sounds awful. Like unimaginable, really.
Oh,
Was
I
was
appreciate that.
You're welcome. Was writing some of this like cathartic to push it out through Maryland?
Oh, yeah. Writing's always cathartic for me. I try to impart all the bad things that happen in life that we
Yeah,
don't like as much. And, we put
yeah,
those in our stories, and that's why horror is great.
absolutely. Before we go any further, I'm so sorry, but I just really wanted to say at the beginning that we're in the presence of double A's. Andrew Adams and
Double,
Adam
double
Allen,
A's. Yeah.
Yeah.
double A's.
We're like a
Good company
before
to
and
be in.
after Wheel of Fortune
You're the
puzzle here.
you're the duo battery pack. So, um,
Do you have a middle name, Andrew?
Yes, it's Steven.
Oh,
So
okay.
ASA.
Yeah, I don't have one, which just makes people so angry. I'm like,
how
Well,
often
they
do you get called, um, I mean, Andrew, or because Adam always gets, I mean, Alan, I mean, Adam, like, how often does that happen to you?
quite a bit, yeah, for sure.
okay, good.
Adam. I get called Adam. I get called Andrew.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
mean. Adam, I mean,
Yeah.
Andrew, yeah.
yeah.
Adam Andrews is fine.
Now, the only, randomly, when you used to work at the bank, Adam, this one guy called you Matt.
I had a name tag on, mind you, at the same time.
They
But
just decided your name was Matt.
yeah, and he was such a nice guy that I just didn't correct
Tolerated
him.
it?
And, a few months later, it turned into like 3 or 4 years, and it just kind of is what it is.
Hey, Matt.
Okay.
I mean, how
Well, maybe
blind you have
there's
to
your middle
be?
name.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Adam, Matthew. Yeah.
I'll take it.
And the other effect, which I don't know where this came from, but the one guy used to walk in and call, "What's up, big dick?"
Oh, he called every guy Big Dick,
But
actually, if
that's,
he liked you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Could be
And he
worse.
was actually a pimp in the 70s. Like,
Okay, well, there you go.
yeah, so I was like, "Okay, I'll take it,"
Yeah.
I
It
would have
could be
called.
worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I love how you started out the book because it felt very like, well, one of the first things, like, and this is at the like very, very beginning, but like they're in front of almost like a, I guess, like audience, and they're talking,
Mhm.
and they're like, all of a sudden they think like the serial killer's there. And then all of a sudden it's like, actually they're not, but like it was only then that you gave a shit that maybe your life was in danger. Otherwise, you don't really care about other people's lives. Like it's just like happening in the world. And I feel like that couldn't be more spot on for what we're going through right now. That, it's other people that are having this happen too, and I've seen some people even reframe the like, they came for the black people and they didn't
Yeah.
speak out. They came for the brown people. They came
Mhm.
for the, like, it's like, and then they came for me and there was no one to speak out. And it feels like very much like some of that just selfishness of society that when it does not pertain to them, that they can
It's
just
just
tune out, and it's just almost
entertainment,
entertainment,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I wrote that part about 3 or 4 years ago. So it
But
just kind of happened to
so
come back
so it
around, I guess.
maintains. It stays, it's been abundant in society, huh? It's still just as relevant.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunately just kind of part of human nature and
Yeah.
an unfortunate part of human nature, of course. But I think maybe we're starting to be a little bit more conscious of it as time goes on. But yeah, I think people are more interested in themselves than anybody else.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think, I wanna talk about both
I wonder
in
too, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I wonder if that's like, and I would have to dig into psychology, but I must wonder if that's a psychological form of protection, like a denial in
Yeah,
some, to just be
yeah,
like, I can't imagine that it's going to happen to me. I need it to be, those are other people. They're not me.
I could see that. And, it would be rather overwhelming if you thought of all the pain and suffering that everybody in the whole world went through all at the same time.
True.
So maybe it's just kind of our brain's way of shutting down. But yeah, ideally, there's a better way to do things.
Yeah, and, to talk about that scene and sort of introducing how Marilyn survived these 8 massacres and, the character of this Bardstown butcher. First, I wanna talk about that, like, this serial killer's kryptonite is basically being ignored, or the lack of fear
Yeah.
in their, potential victims. It's just very much, and I think Marilyn and Dan kind of talk about this a little later, but that basically, this is very much metaphorical, symbolic of, the sort of malignant narcissism that has grown, both in the sense of like people talk about it a lot more, but then also sort of seeing it in people. And the fact that this killer, it just destroys them, that this woman puts her middle fingers up and is like, I don't care. You're not going to get that from me.
It's the best.
Yeah, well, thank you. That actually came out of a short story, the first 3 chapters up until the butcher kills herself. Spoiler, but it's chapter 3. That was a short story that I wrote many years ago now that was supposed to be like a horror comedy story.
Mm.
So that's why you'll get those first couple chapters. It's kind of absurdist, and Marilyn still makes the points about society, and you only care now that it involves
Yeah.
you.
Well,
But
yes.
it was supposed to just be an over the top sort of short story, a couple
Uh-huh.
pages, and it just always stuck in the back of my mind that I wanted to do something more with that.
Unfortunately, like when we look at absurdism, it's almost blending more into how absurd is it actually. But I feel like recently I have been helping a friend of mine for the last half year who is dealing with a true narcissist. And it's really interesting to see that when the supply is cut off and how much supply is required and how often and persistent, and so it kind of makes sense to me. Like at first I was like 8 times, like, is that realistic? And then after I'm like reading through it, I'm like, yeah, I could see it 8 times. Like this bitch is going to give me the reaction I want,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
it's like nonstop. It is, and that's what it's like. It's like my friend has had zero contact, and it's like it keeps emailing, keeps,
Mhm.
texting, calling, creating fake profiles, and it's like, but has plenty of other supply other places too. And it's just that power and control, and just seeing, I'm going to keep trying and trying and trying. So I guess I'm finding a lot of real world parallels of just how someone could eventually just be the killer because it feels that good to have power control, aka I'm so sorry, I'm so jaded right now. Like I'm not gonna apologize, but like I am apologizing. But like these ice people where it's like, are these Proud Boys that just finally like found an actual legit job? Like, it just feels like it's this power and control of just certain types of men traditionally that have the
Because the butcher
narcissism.
is a woman.
The butch and that's what I'm saying. Yes. No, there's that, but nevertheless, it's still women can be narcissists, obviously.
Yeah.
The narcissist in my friend's life informed her, women can be narcissists too. We're like,
Yeah.
thanks so much. We're aware. But it's just it's incredible how to cut off the supply is, as you said, I was gonna say you said kryptonite, but it's
Mhm.
just
Pulls that power cord. Yeah.
it's like instantly, it's nothing is happening then.
Mhm.
So I just kind
Yeah.
of want to muse about what you thought about this. Did you do any research on narcissism, or have you lived with a narcissist? Are
Not
you
that I
one?
know of. I'm definitely not a narcissist myself. Maybe the opposite, if anything. But I've done a lot of serial killer research over the years just because I think this is my third novel written about serial killers. And so it's kind of just been in the back of my mind as is. And a lot of it was the power dynamic. And then a lot of it's sort of the kind of the Moby Dick aspect, like the butcher has to kill Marilyn because she can't.
Mhm.
And it almost becomes like an anxiety for the butcher that she can't
Worldwide.
kill this one person.
So
So
like entitlement too, that like I deserve to have this reaction.
yeah, of course. I wrote about later on in the book the dark triad for serial killers, the 3 personality traits that most of them share.
And that's part of that. Anyone that's not familiar with that, what would that be?
Yes, it's psychopathy, Machiavellianism,
Hmm.
and narcissism.
And, when that comes to play, I don't want to spoil anything, but, it kind of leads into the next, like, kind of section that I wanted to talk about. It's like, as you said in your, plot synopsis, this is essentially this character and a psychiatrist kind of go after serial killers. And by that very nature, you kind of have to have created this, like, almost like Batman style rogues gallery of serial killers in this book that they're going to be going after. And I just wondered, how much, you said you've done a lot of research. Were you like, okay, I want a serial killer that acts like, that has different pieces from real life
Hmm.
ones? Was it more like, okay, this is what's happening in the plot that I already know, and I need to find a serial killer that
That
fits that?
matches. Okay.
Or like, what was your sort of like ideas when it came to who these people were going to be.
Yeah, both of the things that you mentioned, I had some specific stereotypes of serial killers I wanted to meet, and then I also had a few different parts. Like, let's say Victor, he needed to be that particular way to fit that part of the story.
Right.
And then at the end, without spoilers, Odessa, she also needed to fit that particular model to, I don't know what to say without spoilers here, but to serve her purpose in
Right.
their journey.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, especially there's a couple times where it happens, but the scene where the butcher commits suicide involves someone wearing a face. And, you know, when I hear the name Marilyn, I think immediately of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the actress Marilyn Burns. Was that a purposeful, like, homage there?
Not purposeful, no, but I
Uh,
tend to do that quite a bit on accident.
That's cool. Well, and the one thing that I want to say in both, any times, there's also dream sequences involving that and stuff like that too. But like, I think that when I think of Leatherface, I think of that iconic image and almost the power of the idea of what that actually is. It's more like just looks like a regular mask. In this book, especially in that first section, when Marilyn thinks it's her roommate and then realizes who it actually is, I think it brought back a lot of the horror of the idea that this person took someone's face off and is wearing it. And I was wondering if like you were like taking that power and that fear back and saying like, okay, I know this has been done before, like that someone did this, but think about how actually horrific that is.
Yeah, and that was important for Marilyn's character early on because that was still part of the short story
Mm.
that I wanted it to represent Marilyn's total detachment from emotion and feeling, that she's sitting there staring into the face of her best friend and having no physical reaction, at least.
Yeah, I love that when she kind of like she's talking to her and then she's like, "Oh, it's you." It's just very like
Yeah.
matter of fact.
Yeah, just nonchalant.
Yeah.
It's like amazing though. Like just to get that reaction, it's like, oh,
And, like, immediately, I feel like that's, like, kinda sends the butcher into that final spiral where she's just like, "Yeah, I kinda figured this was event gonna happen." And it just again, it's that defiance, that defines Marilyn, especially, at the beginning of the book and throughout it, but especially at that point, it's like a defiance, but it's like a defeated defiance, right?
Yeah, and that's what we talked about a few minutes ago. Is
Yeah.
that's why I went with 8 different massacres, just to kind of prove the point that Marilyn has been through the ringer and then some, that she is still defiant because it's by her nature, but she's also starting to get a bit tired of the whole charade herself.
Yeah. So when you picked this, obviously you said it was a short story and then you kind of picked it back up knowing that it was going to be a longer work now. I'm guessing that's when sort of the idea of Dan and the psychiatrist and his character came about. I feel like, and I don't know if this is purposeful, but pretty much the entire book, I'm questioning Dan's motives and I'm questioning how safe of a person he actually is. And I just wanted to know like where that character came from, his, sort of beginnings. And then also, was that purposeful that it's like, do I trust this guy? Almost the entire book.
Oh yeah, that was definitely purposeful. And I wanted it to be that way because he's almost kind of like a character foil to a serial killer,
Mm,
but he's also rather manipulative and somewhat of a narcissist because he has his own personal agenda that I don't I don't know if that's a spoiler or not for the audience, but and he takes Marilyn at a time where she's kind of vulnerable and broken down, and he knows exactly what he's doing with her.
yeah, and I think that, to a certain extent, she does too. And she's like, it's like this interesting play because I feel like she's like, I know what you're doing, but I think it still might actually help me. So I'm going to go along with it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's why, they're both kind of just broken down people at the time where they meet. But we know quite a bit about Marilyn already at that point, and then Dan slowly reveals his motives over the course of the
Hmm.
book. And
Yeah.
I would still consider him a good guy in
Mhm.
sort of, but he's definitely holding a lot of secrets.
Yeah, it's kinda like and I'm gonna talk about this when it comes to the actual violence in this book, but, like, everyone's messy, right, in this book, like, everyone's mind, everyone's motives, everything, is it's kinda messed up, right? Like, Marilyn never
Yeah.
got to really live a life, like and Dan has his secrets too of why he's so compelled to do this, but it's just very much like just the sort of overall messiness of anyone's psyche, right?
Yeah, and you know And it just becomes the sort of people that they're hanging around, especially as they start hunting serial killers.
Hmm.
They're attracting a similar sort of person. So it kind of just becomes their circle. Everybody's screwed up,
Right.
trauma.
Because they're having to use the sort of same tactics that serial killers use in order to track and understand the movements and routines and things like that to be able to trap and get these guys. So it's very much like following in those footsteps is gonna do something to your mind, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a big point of the book that I wanted to make sure was clear throughout writing it was that there's a lot of parallels between what they're doing and what the serial killers do, with a very fine line between the morals of it. And because, of course, a vigilante serial killer is cool in theory, but maybe not in real life purposes. So we don't want the kids trying that one at home.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of parallels between, especially Marilyn and the Butcher, that they're two kind of outcast sort of people that see a lot of themselves in each other.
Yeah, and when it comes to the actual like violence in this book, I think that just about every time something happens, it's not clean. It's not like a set piece action sequence. It's very messy. Almost every time nothing goes to plan or as expected. And it's just not that kind of like cinematic death scenes that you think of, whether it's in a slasher movie or even like, Silence of the Lambs or Hannibal or something like that. And I'm assuming that was purposeful too. And I just wondered, what your process was when you're like, okay, I know I'm writing this violent scene. How am I going to do that?
Yeah, just to try to look at the characters as, they're kind of beginners in this. They're not formally trained. They're not soldiers of any sort or anything like that. So the thought of them going after a very violent person who does this with their entire life, I didn't want it to be clean because it would seem too easy, too convenient.
Yeah. And I think that, it has to be upsetting to read too, right?
Yeah. And it also, I think there needs to be some stakes that every time they're going after a new killer, one of them might die. And I want the reader to feel that.
Yeah, definitely. That definitely comes across. One other thing, and I kind of want to talk about two things here, but the first is your chapter titles. Obviously, really purposeful, and they're really interesting because they're kind of psychological. They're kind of
Yes.
philosophical, and they really, without like foreshadowing too much, kind of get to the heart of where the characters are at each point throughout the book. And I just wondered, like, how much time you spent on deciding which chapter was named what, because that order of them seems like was really purposeful.
Yeah, well, thank you. That was the first time I've ever done that. So I'm glad that it worked out.
Yeah,
Um, I scribbled down ideas as I was writing it, and then when I was editing, final passes through editing, just went through and most of them stayed the same. So it kind of just worked out that way, in kind of in my favor this time. Sometimes you try things out like that with other ideas and it takes quite a bit of work. But the chapter titles, they just kind of wrote themselves almost.
that's really cool. And I just love that the way that it kind of goes into the next thing is that there's a certain rhythm that I found in this book that was, these really like sudden bursts of violence when they're either hunting or, the serial killers, different things that are happening with them. And then these sort of long philosophical, almost like Socratic dialogues between Marilyn, especially, and Dan, of where
Yeah.
they're really getting to the heart of so many things involving trauma, involving death in general, involving like life's purpose and things like that. And, I just wondered, how did you approach these scenes? Because I think sometimes that might be the hardest part when it comes to writing, of taking these two minds and sort of saying, okay, I'm going to put their thoughts, I'm going to put these philosophies and these things on the page and make it, interesting and really as sort of dynamic as these violent scenes too.
Yeah, well, those are my favorite scenes to write, is the really kind of stilted, sweeping, philosophical type stuff. That's my favorite to do.
I would love to hear a little bit more about why it is your favorite.
Uh, yeah, that's a good question. I think that's just kind of where my brain goes automatically is, everything else is almost building up to those moments for me, the death and the violence and all those scenes. And then I get the opportunity in the story to write those scenes. That's when I get excited. So characters like Dan are always fun for me because I get the opportunity to kind of give him a stage and let him just kind of be full of himself because he's definitely full of himself. And Marilyn doesn't really ever stop him or challenge him. So he gets to kind of just run wild and say all these things that he's thinking.
Yeah, I wonder too, like when you're saying like the philosophical and writing, like is it just your way to really kind of sort out your brain and your thoughts and like musings or anxieties and thoughts around people, just life, all of that? Like, does it just kind of pour out stream of consciousness? Like, are you ever surprised as to what actually ends up coming out?
Yeah, I think you're correct on that. That's probably just a way of sorting out my mind and just kind of making sense of everything. And those are probably some of the easier scenes to write. Yeah, they're one of the scenes where Dan and Marilyn are talking about their dreams towards the end of the book.
Hmm.
And they're talking about, what do these dreams mean and things like that. I think I wrote that in maybe an hour.
Wow.
That's just kind of where my brain settles, I guess. And then the dream that Dan has about his wife, that was actually a dream of mine. So I was able to kind of
Wow.
just transcribe that. Yeah.
It's amazing. I love that. While you're sleeping, you're working.
Yeah. So,
No rest for the hustling writer.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
yeah.
But in a way, like I feel like some of the I don't want to say that I'm a vivid dreamer because I'm not, or lucid, because I'm not entirely sure about that. But I have some of the most vivid dreams, like repeat dreams, like repeatedly repeat dreams. And I'm often very mad at Adam, even though he's like done nothing in the dream and it's like not him, but he's like the. But I've had
Yeah.
some of the scariest things, but it's always like, okay, why am I having this damn dream? Why am I trying to process this? Like, it doesn't matter if I've eaten something funky before bed or not. Like, I never really know when I'm gonna, but I can tell, like, okay, this is something that subconsciously needs to come out.
Mhm.
So I love that you were able to actually have this dream and transfer it onto paper.
Yeah. That's ended up being one of my favorite chapters of the book. And like you said, I also have a lot of vivid dreams and I spend a good amount of time trying to make sense of those and analyze and things like that. So maybe that's where some of those sections come from in the books.
That's really cool. Reading those, it's obvious that, as we've talked, that you've done a lot of research on serial killers. I want to sort of know what that looks like. Are there any like particular books that stand out to you when it comes to that research? But then also, at least it seems that you've done a lot of research on psychology and psychiatry as well, because it comes out in this book. At least it seems like you know what you're talking about to me as someone that hasn't researched it. What does that process look for you like for you? And is it specific to the book or is that just what you're interested in? So you kind of read that on your own.
Both. Yeah, it depends on the book I'm writing that I'll specifically research things. And also both of those subjects, serial killers and psychology, they're just things I'm fascinated with, particularly when combined.
Mm.
And nowadays I read a lot more nonfiction than fiction. And part of that's because of writing. And part of it is just, it just keeps calling back to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, both of those topics, psychology, philosophy, things like that. I've read, I have a sizable library. So that's where I do most of my research is from actual books.
Love that for you. And want to hear a little bit. Look, our show is about tangents
Mhm.
here, mostly my inquiries. But tell us, give us a little visual tour with your words. Paint us the picture of your library. I need to know because it's funny. It was right before we were recording. I'm downstairs and we're always reorganizing and redoing things. And I was like, been working in our library the last like two,
Mhm.
3 hours. And our 13-year-old was saying, like, yeah, I tell my friends at school that I have a library. And they're like, no, you don't. A library is at least 1,000 books. And she's like, both my parents have over 1,000 books each.
Yeah, no
Um,
problem.
it's very expensive. And she's like, how much did all this cost? I was like, you don't want to know. It's very expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to hear about your library. And then I need to hear a little bit more about your nonfiction. Like I have to.
Sure. Yeah, the library, most of my personal stuff like that, I actually store in the garage. It's insulated, it's fully furnished and everything.
Amazing.
I have two children inside and they take up a lot of space.
Yeah. And you're like hands off, right?
Yeah, so the garage is kind of my man cave as it were. And so that's where I keep most of my books and my music and things like that, my physical media. And then as far as the nonfiction goes, I read a lot of serial killer type stuff, of course, a lot of religion, not
Like
not
constructing of religion.
yeah, and also just different Bibles and things like that, not for religious purposes, but just because they're very interesting.
Yeah.
be it the Christian Bible or the Quran or
Uh-huh.
the Satanic Bible. I've
Yeah,
read all of them.
that's awesome. I was listening to a podcast recently and was just talking about is the I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's like just a fun show, the stuff you should know. And they were just talking about like the science of forgiveness and it was looking through each different like
Religious text.
yeah, and how different ones like all align for that, but
Yeah.
also just how I'm a huge fan of Pat Conroy, and I was reading his musings on writing in the Low Country, and he was like, "Yeah, I accidentally ended up reading the wrong Bible because my mom wanted me to read the other one, and like I learned lessons I wasn't supposed to." And I'm like, "That's crazy!" Like that, depending on which version you're gonna get
Yeah.
different. So I think that's pretty neat. And I'm also really big on the physical media. I'm trying to now like we get a lot of arcs, which I'm grateful for, and but then the ones that are like gems, to me, like I really want to make sure that they have a place
Mhm.
on the bookshelf. Not that they're like trophies or anything, but I think originally we were buying so many books and we're like, oh, we'll read this. And now I just feel like my TBR is just too much and I struggle between like should I actually give some of these away and just like only have books that I've read? Like do you go back and forth about like what things you're keeping or how to like accommodate the space?
Yeah, for sure. I also have a substantial music collection that's well over 1,000 CDs and vinyls.
Nice.
You know what I love
And
that you're saying right now is that you're never, I'm assuming to have 1,000 that you never strayed from keeping the analog to say, like, I know, or physical media, I shouldn't say analog, but you know what I mean? Where
yeah,
you have the VHS or the DVD or the CD, like tapes, like, cause it's yours, right? And I think like there
yeah,
was this huge push to just get rid of so much stuff and to be like, oh, why would I need this? I have this the whole digital library. And now you don't really own any of it. It can be
no.
changed, it can be withheld from you, just all kinds of reasons to actually make the investment and have it.
Yeah. And I like the personal touch when you open a book or when you put a CD in the CD player or the vinyl or whatever it may be. I think that's what we've been missing for the last, what is
Mhm.
it, 15 years now? That
Yes.
kind of personal touch.
Well, it's like, that concept where you're like, "Go touch grass." It's like, well, it's kinda nice to just, like, even touch the
Yeah.
book, touch the
Yeah.
physical thing. Where are you located?
I'm in California, Southern California.
That is, like, not convenient because Adam and you, like, it sounds like you have similar habits and hobbies. We're running out of actually, like, our library connects to our like, our dining room,
Uh-huh.
and the library is one of the biggest rooms in the house, and I was like, with the amount of stuff that Adam has, I'm almost like, "Do you want me to just, like, get rid of the dining room and I'll just move in there?" And because he has comic books and
Yeah.
baseball cards and so many things of DVDs and music and vinyls and VHS, and now he's collecting tapes again, and I just could see if you were close, like, y'all could even, like,
Yeah.
just tour and encourage each other to spend and
Well, I was
collect.
gonna say, like, even when it comes to like the vinyl and tapes and CDs and all that, it's like liner notes were an art, unto
Yeah,
Yeah.
themselves, right? To like
beautiful.
open it and see those things and streaming, it's like, yeah, you still you hear the same song, but it's like there's so much more, to part of it. And I forget what artist it was that was talking about albums that we like pick songs like scabs instead of listening to them, as one
Mhm.
thing. And the idea of I think music is something that you do while you're doing something else. To so like is what kind of streaming and it being on your phone has turned
Yes,
into instead of it being,
like,
you
sit
used
and
to just sit,
experience.
yeah, you sat in your room and you listened to music and that was what you did at that time, right? And I think that physical media kind of allows for that a lot more than putting it on your phone or whatever.
Right? Because you have to, like, literally hit the
You have
rewind
to choose,
or
yeah.
or skip the
Mhm.
track or whatever. It's such a experience too, like, sometimes you and I will sit and we'll just, like, actually put, like maybe, like, Friday or Saturday, we'll put, like, candles on and,
Mm.
the family will come and sit and we'll just listen to songs or music or we'll show we'll
Share each other, what are you listening to lately?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Sometimes we like to even go back and just, like, watch old school videos and send our kids to, like, education on, "You gotta see
mhm.
this song
Oh,
is so good, but
music videos,
you gotta
yeah.
see the video that corresponds with
You've
this."
definitely
Like,
lost that art a lot too. Didn't
Mhm.
MTV just end? Yeah.
did. It
Yeah.
absolutely had its last broadcast. I
Yeah,
will
it's too bad that was A huge inspiration for me as well was just sitting down and reading lyrics to music, and
Right.
while you're listening to it, of course,
Yeah.
and you get that full immersive experience that we don't have anymore.
Yeah. I told Adam that this is one of the first he was one of the first people I ever knew that on, like, DVD, Blu-ray that you would watch what's that?
The commentary?
Yes, and I was like, "A what?"
Really?
He's like, "The commentary," and I was like, "I don't even know what you're talking
There's
about."
some
Like, that
movies I like the commentary more than the movie.
yeah, but, like,
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was, like,
Yeah.
a thing. Like, I didn't and we've been, like I don't know, no one in my life had ever watched a commentary. I didn't even know that was on a disc, and I found it to be really fascinating then after you showed it to me, but I understand that what is Ryan Coogler has it for Sinners
Oh,
on
yeah.
YouTube of just how he shot a lot of it and look so I'm like, I really wanna check that out.
Yeah, it's a great way to watch some of your favorite movies because you get the visuals in the background, and I'm also guilty of watching many movies with the commentary on.
I was like, "Y'all are like peas in a pod, the
Yeah.
double A squad."
Listen, if Bruce Campbell's involved, I'm
Yes.
Oh yeah.
watching it with the commentary on, or Kurt Russell, like they just seem to know what they're doing with that stuff. But I wanted to, and we started talking about this, but you said something that was really interesting to me right when we started talking about this, that you were like, I'm writing, so I'm reading a lot of nonfiction. Now, do you find that reading fiction is like when you say that, is that like, do you feel like when you're writing that nonfiction is the better things to be reading? Or you mean like you're writing something, so you're reading nonfiction that's specific to what it is that you're writing?
I guess I took it that he was, like, not reading fiction, so he didn't, like, dilute the story he was writing, but that could be it too. Good
Yeah,
question.
it's both things. It is a good question. Sometimes the nonfiction will be specific to the story. Like right now, I'm writing a novel that's set in a max security prison, and
That's the one that
I've
you
never
said is
been.
very, very dark.
Yes, yes. This one's very dark. There's no hope in sight, and I've never been in a max security prison, so I need to read a lot about it. Things like that, and then also, yeah, when I'm writing a lot, I think sometimes it's easy to kind of take influence from books as you're reading them that
Mm.
can bleed into your writing.
Gotcha.
Well,
So it's typically the nonfiction is, like I said, I read a lot of religious type stuff and philosophy, and I've Aleister Crowley and all sorts of stuff.
Hmm.
that's really
That's
cool.
so how do not to get, you don't have to reveal anything about the book that you're writing now, but I would imagine, a lot of times when it comes to prison and people in prison, that different types of religions play such a huge part. Do you find that like maybe that they kind of inspired each other, or that you find that that research that you've already done is really sort of like helping you when it comes to like sort of mindsets and different things in there? Because that's always been something that fascinates me. And it makes sense, in a place with not a lot of hope, that religion would be a
Yeah.
big part of it. But how have you found that correlation there?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. It's one hand kind of feeds the other there, and it did inspire me to include a character in the book that's in the prison he's kind of their preacher, so to
Mm,
speak, on the prison yard. So
Wow.
he's a side character. He's not the main character. I didn't want it to be overwhelming
right.
with,
Uh-huh.
yeah, where it's very preachy. It's kind of this guy just talking to the clouds, so to speak.
Well, very interested being that my brother is a prison chaplain
Oh, great.
and some of
If
the
you have any questions.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, if you do, I mean, that's the thing is like the amount of absolute horrific stories that I mean, I'm glad someone's there for whatever, religion you believe in or whatever, just, to survive and make peace with a lot of things and just,
Yeah.
it's I'm a big person that believes in rehabilitation. So, if you haven't yet, if I could please recommend to you the movie Sing Sing. I don't know if you know anything about it.
I haven't seen it, but I'd love to check it out.
So Adam and I went to it was like
That Monday mystery
yeah,
movie thing.
and it ended up being Sing Sing, and so what it is, it's all about the prison in New York, Sing
Mhm.
Sing, that
Hmm.
is they have a theater program that helps for therapeutic of processing through the whatever violent crimes or
Hmm.
experiences they've had, and it helps with just overall like life and compliance and just like healthier prison life and all that. But the levels of recidivism, meaning if you're not familiar with that word, or it's like basically a recidivism rate is when someone would like get out of prison and then go back in because
Hmm.
they immediately were, they offended again and had to go back in. So having something like this theater program, traditionally, like there's like in society, like a 70% at least, like on average, like recidivism rate. And I think that's at least in our area, it is.
Yeah.
But having a program like this, it goes down into like the 30s.
And it's based on a true story. Like it's
It's
a real
real. Yeah,
program. Yeah.
it's a true story, and there's multiple prisons that have it, and a lot of the prisoners that play in the movie actually were real prisoners that
Mhm.
participated in this program, and it is one of the most horrific and evocative, some of the best acting and art I've ever seen. Like, I'm literally choke up thinking about I think it's an absolute fucking
It
masterpiece.
is. Yeah. It's brilliant.
But to see how people fucking ended up in these places and what they're doing and just the way people can change and just I like this one too because it's not about like religion. It's just about having a purpose and a community
Hmm.
and basically like overall like forgiveness and how you make peace with like your overall life. And it was just really excellent. And also, just I can't recommend it enough. So if you
Yeah.
watch it, I would love for you
Great
to
movie.
share. I had one other question then too about the nonfiction because I believe it was Haley Newland that was telling us about this would have been
Oh,
6 months
about
ago.
the yeah,
A lot of the serial killers
mhm,
have, been around in, like, hi
pollution. Yeah.
yeah, I think even recently I saw a story, like, is it high lead
Oh,
areas? Have you read anything on that?
Yeah, it does ring a bell. I don't know too much about it, but I would definitely be interested in looking into it myself.
Yeah, I gotta remember what book she said.
Murderland was it?
I think it might have been,
Yeah.
yeah. It was basically saying, like, they live in these where there's, like, extreme factories,
Yeah.
and so, I don't know. I mean, it
Yeah.
certainly
It's fascinating.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is, because it's like there was this, I guess, extreme, what do I wanna say, string of this during, like, what, late sep not
Yeah.
that there's gone away, because even right now, wasn't there a bunch of things that recently happening where there was, like, bodies being pulled out in a certain lake recently that they was it New York or Texas that
I
they
think it was New
thought
York.
okay,
Okay.
that they think it's serial killers on the loose again. What are your thoughts on that, by the way?
The loose serial killer?
Yeah. Do you
I
think
would
there is one in New
imagine,
York right now?
yeah, I'm sure there's quite a few that
He's
we don't know
yeah,
about,
yeah,
sadly.
you've done enough research to be like, "Yeah, man, all the
Mhm.
telltale signs are here."
I had to do a lot of research for Middle Finger Rigor Mortis because of the amount of serial killers they encounter. I didn't
Uh-huh.
want it to seem ridiculous that, you know, how many serial killers are in a given metropolis at a
City or
certain
whatever,
time.
yeah.
And I based that number roundabout on what's widely believed to be true.
Wow.
Oh, that's terrifying. Thank you.
Yep. But
That's yeah.
the good news is that many of them are inactive or they only kill once every several years or things like that. So it's not everybody's a Ted Bundy,
Yeah.
you know.
Interesting. That's fascinating in itself. Wanted to ask, we had just talked to another author, Amanda Cassile, and she was talking about how when, at least for her, when she's writing about, really deep, dark, psychological things, that she had to kind of purposely, when she wasn't writing, kind of bring balance in doing certain things, to bring light back in and happiness and joy and all that kind of stuff when
Mhm.
they're in the deep when they're writing. Do you feel the same way when you're in this mindset for, such a long period of time and even your dreams and things like that? Do you find that it affects you? And if so, like what kinds of things do you do to counteract that?
Yeah, it can definitely have an effect, especially most of my books there's almost no happy endings or any sort of reprieve at all. And I just balance that out just by living my normal life. I only write at night, so that kind of sections that off into a small space of my life that's maybe an
Yeah.
hour or two every day. I spend a lot of time with the kids. I work quite a bit. I have two jobs. So that kind of brings that balance that I need because when I go to work and it's like I'm fulfilling my other purpose, I teach nights at a college. I'm a instructor there. So that's kind of how I balance out. And then music's another big part of it. Like we mentioned, that's kind of always been my go-to.
That's so good to know. It's like but that you have to be intentional with offsetting it.
Yeah. Yeah, because otherwise it can kind of take over your thought processes and that's all you're focusing on and you can feel rather overwhelmed because all of that stuff is inside your head and it's the only way to get it out is by writing or doing something else that takes your mind off it completely.
Yeah, definitely. So as we're, beginning to wrap up here, I just want to know, like, the reader for Middle Finger Rigor Mortis. I mean, I know I am, but like when you kind of have this book and you're birthing it, like, who is the intended audience? Like, what do you want that reader to get from this book when
Yeah,
they pick it up?
we've been talking about, like, who you could write a horror prescription. Middle finger rigor mortis is the medicine. Who needs this prescription?
Readers who want challenging horror and thought-provoking horror and of course revenge stories. As far as a specific author I'm trying to think of, I can't off the top of my head. I get for fans of blank.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for fans of Andrew Adams, that's all you
Yeah,
gotta
So yeah,
exactly.
say.
there you go. Of course, of course.
You will be a future fan, of course. That's awesome. So this book is coming out in just a couple days.
And what kind of social post are we having around this? Should we like all include like the middle finger up?
Yeah,
Like
I know
as
you're having that book tour
Yeah.
kind of the book
like
that's
I'm
going around,
saying,
which has
like,
been really cool. I love that, especially that middle finger candle was really cool.
hell yeah.
That was a gift from a friend of mine. She's the one who set up the book tour.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, so I want to like help each of these guests that come on. I suggested to Amanda Casil that maybe we do some examples of her pretending to shit in the woods with her book because she was like, I'm not going to celebrate it. And then I was like, okay, well, she's got like some crazy owls. So I was like, you can have like a hooter thing, and Adam and she kind of were like, what are you crazy? But I think we're all hoot at you. So
Yeah.
now with the middle finger, we all got to be like,
Who
fuck
deserves
you, Andrew. No, I'm kidding. I'm not doing that. But
who would you most want to give a double middle
yeah,
finger
who would
to?
you? Yeah, it's like
Yeah, I love the post with the middle fingers. Those are great. They always make me laugh.
I love it. I love it.
Especially in the book, it's an empowering thing. It's not.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you know what?
Yeah.
It was always taught to be such a naughty thing, but it's so like empowering. It's just so it
Yes.
means so, Um, and I guess my final question was after all this research, if you were in the role of the character, do you think you would do that? Just give the middle fingers and just not give the catharsis?
I'd like to think so. That would be great. I feel like I would probably be more like a Dr. Dan though. Maybe a little bit more of an overthinker and someone who's a little bit more plotting than free spirited as Marilyn is. I think I'm more of a Dr. Dan.
Yeah, well, I would imagine that the idea is to really like fucking survive and like try to outthink and just out of natural survival instincts and for to just like knock it. I mean, with the middle fingers, it's like maybe double middle fingers. Middle finger rigor mortis is just perfect for 2026.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
Perfect
perfect
book to start
timing
the
and
year on.
It really is.
Absolutely.
Like put your double middle fingers up,
Mm.
start your year, attitude, all of that.
I have to thank Joey Powell from Mad Axe. I know you guys have had him on before
Oh yeah.
or spoken with him.
No, I speak to Joey like
He did our logo.
he did our logo
Mhm.
Oh,
and
perfect.
we've interviewed him, we've read his books, and I just think sometimes we lovingly pick on him,
Yeah,
which he's really good sport about.
Yeah.
But no, we're a huge fan, and he's a good friend.
good. That's good to hear. He obviously is publishing this book and
Mhm.
through his Mad Axe Media Company.
Yes.
But he's also the one that encouraged me to change it from a novella, which it was its
Oh,
second
nice.
incarnation, into a novel. So I have to give him his thanks that he saw the vision for it and he said, I need you to, if you can, make this a
I
novel.
love that. I think Joey's got a great take on art and the pulse, and his series with Totally Freaked and who he's been having the authors on with Maddox. I think you're a great fit for what you're doing for that. And I love like the look and the feel. The cover is so evocative.
Yeah, Drew Huff does such a good job. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like it is a standout. I was just curious too. Do you think at some point you could have like the sprayed yellow edges or I don't even know what?
Somebody needs to make it, right?
Something.
The
Someone
middle fingers
Yeah.
down the yeah.
we need to
Oh, that
bedazzle
would be
them.
amazing.
Yeah, so cool.
So
Maybe
no,
the special edition.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a community, right, of people advocating. I love that Joey was able to see that for you and Drew to pull the vision together for that. And I mean, already I've seen, as we shared today on the story of just great reviews coming out. So congrats to you. I'm so glad you could be on the show that we can support you. And we would love to have you back for round 2 when you are ready for your next one. Already quite peaked about what this is going to be.
Yeah, I'd love to come back on and thank you guys, of course. Yeah, the prison novel is nearing its ending here. Probably take some serious rounds of edits just to make sure the tone is right throughout the book. And this summer, some point, I have another book coming out through Cemetery Dance called Crossroads Inc.
Nice.
Wow. Congratulations. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the topic is?
Yeah, that one's super transgressive. It's about a life insurance company that pays people money before they die by taking their body parts from them. So that one's super fun.
Yeah, that's
Oh
awesome.
my gosh. And also to come out with their cemetery dance.
Yeah, very cool.
It's your
Yeah,
Chiswalkers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's coming out. We don't have an exact date yet, but that should be some time in the middle of the year, and very transgressive for that one.
Yeah. It's almost like reverse mortgaging your body.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah, that one's fun. It's they go in and they say, I want some of that free money you talked about, and they say, all right, cut off your hand.
It's like,
Ooh,
well, you know what? I only need one eye.
how far
I
will you
have,
go?
you know, how much of my liver do you need to
Mhm.
cut out?
Yeah.
You know, just
Yep,
leave
those
me
are
the
all topics.
okay.
Love
Just
it.
leave me the island of Langerhans or the Island.
My
Do you know what that is, Adam?
yes, we talked about it. Yes, in your yes.
In your livers.
Your livers. Yep.
Yes. So that's really fun. Support you and just keep us posted. We'll make sure that when we see you next time and when we're online that we'll be giving you both the middle fingers.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'd love to see that. From everybody, please send them my way.
All
You
right.
got it. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good one.